Everyone, I'm Laurel Beard, and today I'm going to show you a whole bunch of different stamping techniques using what you already have. No new gadgets, no new anything. Let's get to it. Okie dokie, so let's do some partial stamping. First, I'm going to take this background stamp that I have, and I'm just going to stamp it the regular way. I'm going to be lazy and press my cardstock to the background stamp because this is a very thick, durable stamp. I can do it rather than having to get a block or a stamping tool. Just pressing, 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 and then I get this perfectly stamped background. But let's say you want to do partial embossing. Now this became a little surprise for me because I thought I cleaned my stamp off very well. And usually I clean my stamps off with just water and microfiber cloth. Turns out that cloth was a little dirty, but wait, I'm going to keep it in the video because I didn't expect this. So I went ahead and cleaned off the stamp supposedly and only inked up the top part of the stamp. So then I'll go ahead, this time I grabbed a piece of paper. So just to give full pressure, and look, what was supposed to happen was the top was supposed to stamp and then the bottom corner was supposed to be nothing. But because my stamp was dirty, I got a really cool two-tone look and I didn't even mean to do it. So yay for dirty microfiber cloths. And I just quickly put together these cards using some images and die cuts I already had in my magic mug. Next up is partial masking. Now you can use this with copy paper and just cut a circle, but I had a stencil for this. So I just kind of glued it down in place because I'm a lazy crafter, and I'm just making sure to hold that stencil in place, and then I'm going to ink up around the mask. So anything under that circle, which I'm calling a mask, is not inked up. So then I'll go ahead and press my cardstock onto the stamp, and bada bing, bada boom, look at this. So you got a really cool two-tone look, but with the circle in the middle so you can put your images or your stamps or whatever. And I just pulled this coffee card together just like that. Super simple. This is a heart stencil I made myself with my Cricut. And you can do the same thing with something like that. If you have a stencil that has an opening, or you can grab some copy paper and die cut a heart or whatever shape you have with the copy paper, because copy paper is super thin. So you don't want to use regular cardstock. Use thin paper and you can make your own there. And again, I didn't clean my stamp good, so I got a two-tone look. I was going for all that light color. That yellow color was supposed to be nothing but white, but because my stamp was dirty, it's not. And I think this looks better than, if the stamp was clean. But either way, you know how to do it now, whether you clean your stamps or not. All right, multicolored heat embossing is what we're going to do next. So I just have a piece of regular tape that I put on the back of that cardstock. I'm now using my MISTI stamping tool because anytime I do multi-inking or anything where I can't line up my stamps on acrylic blocks. I just cannot. I'm not good at it. I mess it up every single time. So I use my MISTI every single time. So I went ahead and buffed on some baby powder on my white cardstock. I do that every time I do heat embossing. And then I'm inking up this embossing ink pad, which is a clear sticky ink. So I made sure to I want everything. You can't see what I stamped because it's clear on white. But what I'm going to do is go ahead and drop on some embossing powders. Now you can use just one color and call it a day, but I'm going to use a couple of different colors here. And I use a piece of copy paper to collect all of the excess of the powder and then dump it back into the little jars that they come in. So again, you can do this with one color or whatever, but let's just be wild and crazy and use some different colors here. Why not? So again, each color, I make sure to funnel it back into the jar and move on. Now this time I decided to fold my cardstock, or that's not cardstock, that's copy paper, out of the trash can, by the way, to get a good crease, and then it funnels much easier, and you'll see. So anyway, I'm doing this, do what you want here, but it's going to be a really cool look. You have all these different colors, and because it's heat embossing, it's going to have that nice shine. So I put this on super fast speed because nobody wants to watch me heat emboss, but I'm melting all of the embossing powder with my heat tool there, making sure everything is good. A good trick to make sure it's all melted is just kind of give it a look from the side and make sure everything is shiny. If you see any dull areas, then just zap it with your heat tool again. And now I've got this card that filed away as a background and I can turn it into a card later. All right, two-tone stamping. Having a MISTI stamping tool is a game changer for me. If you're a whiz at lining up your stamps, then you're a rock star to me. So I'm just going to take two different colors of pinks. I'm using all Catherine Pooler inks. Those are my colored inks that I use. And I'm just making sure that I have inked up all the areas of that stamp. And then I'll go ahead and press it onto the cardstock there. And again, to secure that cardstock in place, I'm just using a piece of tape on the back, like sticky tape. No big deal. Just to make sure it doesn't move in place because I didn't want to use magnets because I just didn't want to. So then without re-inking or anything like that, I'm going to go ahead and put a piece of cardstock in place again and give it a second print. And this is called second generation stamping. We're going to do this again in the video, but look at the two different looks that you get just from one stamping. And again, I can file this away and turn these into cards later. All right, now we're going to do multicolor stamping, which is similar technique to what we did with the same stamp with embossing powder. We're just going to do it with inks, but then we're going to create a resist. So it's a little different. So I'm going ahead, doing the same thing, making sure all the ink is, the stamp is inked up. There will be some empty spots because I didn't want to contaminate my ink pads. So again, using a stamping positioner is a game changer for me. So I thought I was going to go in with this cool blue fence, but let's go in and add a little more color, add a little brown, add a little here, add a little there. It doesn't really matter. This gives you such a cool look with these stamps. I can't even. So look at that. Look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? And I just clean my stamps using a clean microfiber cloth next time, by the way, but just with water. I don't have any specific ink cleaning solvent, if you will. All right, so without moving the ink or the paper, I'm going to ink this up with some Versamark. This isn't Versamark, with some embossing ink from Wow. Don't move anything. Make sure everything is in place because I'm going to cover up every single thing that I stamped with this clear embossing ink. And then we're going to sprinkle on some clear embossing powder and then go ahead and heat set that. So we're going to turn this card right here into this card right here. But before I show you how, I love my rising desk from FlexiSpot. This is the Pro Plus Standing Desk E7 from FlexiSpot. It's motorized. It can go up and down and also has a memory setting. So you can set the setting when you're sitting or standing and it will remember it. You can get all these cool little things that go with your desk. That's a monitor riser up at the top. They have drawers. They have all kinds of doodads and accessories. It holds up to 355 pounds. We're going to demonstrate that in just a second. And no, I'm not going to get on that desk. But this is it going up and down. And I'm trying to impress my daughter with like my magician skills. Very hard to impress little girls, just so you know. So anyway, to give you an idea of how high it goes, this is a desk suitable for anyone that's 4'2" to 6'3". Here I am putting it down. She's like, ooh. So anyway, it's very smooth. This desk does not wobble at all. The legs are customized. You can choose the color of your frame. The top I chose is a bamboo setting. There's also different size desks. I have a smaller one, but you can have a bigger one if you want. And this holds up to 355 pounds. So I've got my dog and my daughter up there, and he left. So I love my desk. I actually have a exclusive code in the description below, so check it out. They also give you a 30-day risk-free return policy and a 15-year warranty. So if you were ever interested in trying a desk, this is the one for you. All right, so back to the card. This is the second technique for this card, which is resist stamping. So because I went ahead and inked that up with the embossing ink, I'm going to sprinkle on some clear embossing powder and heat set it. And it's going to trap all that color underneath. So whatever I do to the top of it, it's not going to affect the color underneath. So I've got some blending brushes. They're dirty. Hello, I'm terrible at cleaning. So watch, I put on a little brown and I'm like, oh, no. So I grabbed some more of that blue ink and fixed it. But I did go wash my blending brushes after this, just so you know. So I wanted to create a beautiful sky, maybe a little sunset. I don't know. You can be completely crazy and do non-traditional colors, and that would be just fine. Do whatever colors you want. But I'm just blending right over that. And because we've heat embossed that, we've created a resist. So all the cool colors that you created underneath are going to stay the same. Now, if I kept that white, it would look like snow, which would be a cool winter scene. But it is like, what month is this? June. It's hot. So I made it into grass. But do whatever. I love these background stamps. These are all from Penny Black. I've had them for many, 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 many years, and I love them. And then I'll just kind of dampen that cloth and clean off any of the ink that's sitting on top of that clear embossed image, and we are good to go. Isn't that pretty? So you can adhere this to a card panel, add a word die, stamp a sentiment. You can't stamp over the embossed areas, but you can. There was plenty of blank space where we just ink blended. So there's a lot that you can do with this card once you want to finalize it. All right, let's do some faux watercoloring. Not everybody has watercolors. Not everybody wants to invest in it. Not everybody's good at it. So let's go ahead and cheat. So I'm going to line this image up using my MISTI. Again, I've gone ahead and secured the bottom with some tape. to keep it in place. And then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to ink up the image with a bunch of different colors. So this is not going to be new to you. Just take care to not let your ink pads touch other colors. If you do, you can just squiggle the ink pad, squiggle, I don't know, is that a word, onto some paper, and it'll clear up just fine. But I use caution when I'm doing that. I'm being very careful. Then I spritz it with water. And this is where that faux watercolor comes in. Let me show you again. So I spritzed it really well, and then I'm going to go ahead and press it onto, now that is watercolor cardstock. All the other cardstock is just regular cardstock. This is watercolored cardstock. So you get this really cool look here, but without doing anything, I'm going to go ahead and add some paper again, and then press down again. And then you'll get two impressions. One is going to be very saturated, and one is going to be very light and muted. And you get really two different looks, and I think it's cool, and everybody's going to think you watercolored that by hand. I'm just saying, they're going to think you are uber talented. But you are. So let's move on to the next one. We're going to do water stamping. Did you know if you have the right kind of inks, you can do water stamping? So I'm using my Catherine Puller inks. Any water reactive ink that you have is fine. I just love her ink line, and that's all I have for my colored inks. That looks like a hot mess. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I just needed to get a lot of ink onto the cardstock. This is watercolor cardstock again. Anytime I'm using water, I'm going to use watercolor cardstock. Then I'm just going to spray this stamp. There is no ink on it. This is just water, water, water. And then go ahead. Ooh, my stamp dropped, so I did this a different way. I placed it onto the paper and then picked it up with my block. And you got to press, really press. Give it like 10 seconds or so to make sure the water seeps into the inked cardstock. And look at that. Look at that cool little print. It's different. It's cool. It's different. It looks like you stamped bleach or something, but you didn't. You used water. All right, let's do it again. We're going to do a tree, a pine tree. So I'm doing a couple of different inks. This looks like a hot but ugly mess. Doesn't matter. It's not going to matter. You need to have a lot of ink on your cardstock and use watercolored paper for this to work. Then I've got this little tree stamp. I'm just going to spray it with water, place it on the cardstock, press it with an acrylic block, or use your stamping tool, whatever floats your boat. Just make sure you let that stamp sit for a few seconds to make sure the water transfers. And then look at it. Looks like you stamped with water or bleach. They're not going to think you stamped with water. They're going to think you like painted this or something. People are going to not know how you did that. So I'm going to take it one step further. I am going to put this back into my stamp positioner. I didn't have to, but I'm just going to, I don't know. I'm not comfortable with trying to line my stamps up very well. So this tree was kind of easy to line up. So I lined it up as best as I could. I only inked up little bits of the tree. And now look, I've created like this shadow look. So now it really looks hand painted. Let's look at this closer. Isn't that neat? I mean, seriously, water and ink, people, that's all you need. Shadow stamping using that same tree, but this time I'm making a pink tree. No, there's no such thing, but I don't care. So I'm going to go ahead, ink it up, stamp it once. Then without doing anything else, I'm going to move it, stamp it again. And I'm even going to go for a third stamp. So this is like third generation stamping now. So we did second generation, now third generation. And I didn't stamp it very well, but I'm going to show you how I fix that because you know I'm not going to get rid of that. I just added some washi tape on the side, or you can trim it down, whatever. But I think that's cool. Look at the two different like shadings of the tree just by, stamping it again without re-inking it. See how many generations they call it. First generation, second generation, third generation. See how many generations you can get. But here's all the cards I made in today's video using different basic stamping techniques. You don't need any new supplies or any frou-frou supplies. You can use what you have to do all of these things. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe, do the whole thing. All of the supplies I used, if they're available, they're listed in the description below. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you again next time.